So Vinland Saga just ended, and I've got to say, I'm a little bit all over the place about this. This is a story that I've held dear for a long time, and a story that has taught me many important things. To see it now come to an end in real time, it's kind of... It's melancholy, to be honest with you. I'm glad that I got to experience the journey, but there is this lingering sadness that there's going to be no more to read. This should go without saying, but since we are covering the final chapter of the story, this video is going to contain spoilers. So the final chapter opens with negotiations between Thorfinn and Plumnuk, where they're still on good terms, so Thorfinn gives them a gift of wheat so they can plant during the summer. And, you know, despite the differences in culture and the blood that's been spilled on both sides, it just goes to show that human nature, kindness, it always triumphs, and I think, you know, it's very sweet. So after this little conversation, the Norse settlers board their boats and they sail off in search of something new. Now this was a question that had been asked in the last chapter, where Carly said himself, he said, you know, well, even if we've failed now, that doesn't mean we have to give up. We can go somewhere else. We can go all around the world until we finally find somewhere that can understand Daddy. And this is what I think the final message of Vinland Saga is really trying to say. Even if Vinland was a failure, even if the Land of Peace didn't prosper as they wanted it to, it's not the end of the story. You know, but how could that be? Vinland was everything that we had been shooting for since the very beginning, since Thors, since Leif, since the farmland arc. It had all been building towards this. And I think that's fair enough in its assumption, but I also don't think that's entirely correct. Vinland Saga has always been about peace, not necessarily the location in where that peace takes place. I don't remember what chapter it was exactly, but not too long ago in the story, Thorfinn sustained some pretty bad injuries and he fell into a deep sleep. And while he was unconscious, he saw the ghosts of the people he had killed, something that has always haunted him. And at this point, Thorfinn thinks he has failed, thinks he is ready to accept his death. But surprisingly, the ghosts turn to him and they say, "You've not failed, get back up, resurrect what you've built and keep going. It's only once you stop moving forward that you've inevitably failed." And I think that's the message that's been carried on to the final chapter. It doesn't matter if Vinland is a failure, it doesn't matter if the next settlement is a failure. It's not about the success, it's about the desire to keep trying. As long as those flames continue to burn, Vinland Saga will never really be over. And more so, while the story is very tragic, it's not without its positives. Yes, Vinland was a failure, yes, many lives were lost, including some that were, you know, very personally attached to the reader, but I think more so than that, think of how much good came from this. Thorfinn finally made amends with his violent past, he got forgiveness from Hild, he managed to build a family with Gudrid and Carly, and he's even got his own biological child now. There was a lot of hurt and a lot of pain that came from Vinland, but so too was there a lot of growth and a lot of positives. And I think that's something that should be focused on. That's what the story has always been trying to convey. While the flames of war, you can't really escape them. You can distract yourself from them. You can always find a way to live that you can be satisfied with, a way that you can be proud of. And what really cements this for me is the final couple of panels, where Plumnuk is planting the wheat that Thorfinn has given him, and while he's planting this wheat, he's defending it, he's letting it grow, and I think this is really symbolic for what we've learned throughout our time in Vinland. While peace might not have been attainable in the way that Thorfinn wanted, there was no doubt that his actions had an impact on the natives. He made friends, he made connections, and ultimately he did make a difference, even if it wasn't a massive one. And now he's off somewhere else to do the same thing. So yes, I think ultimately the final lesson of Vinland Saga is this. Violence, hatred, and ignorance are always going to exist in this world. No matter how much we grow as people, no matter how far we run away from those things, they're always going to continue to chase us. But they don't have to define us. We still have a choice how we approach those topics, how we deal with them. We don't have to fight violence with more violence. We can always choose a safer, more satisfying option. Even if it means running away, even if it means discarding pride, you've always got a choice. And this was also a theme in the last couple of chapters, this I have no choice, it's war, I've got to kill. Well, that's not necessarily true. There's always an option. And I think the real lesson of Vinland Saga is finding that option and using it to the best of your ability. And really, we see this best displayed within Einar, when, the Lanu are attacking the fort, Einar feels backed into a corner, so even he, who hates war, raises a weapon and kills a man. But even though he's convincing himself over and over, I had no choice, I had to do it, the guilt still haunts him. And it just goes to show that even if it is the easier option, it's not always the right one. So yeah, all in all, this is one of my favourite stories ever told. And, I don't have words for it other than just, wow. I am blown away by the writing, the art, and the pacing, the characters. Everything in this story has been absolutely top notch, and I'm very, very grateful to Yukimura for writing such a fantastic story, and I'm so grateful that I've been around for the journey.